Welcome back, Gator Nation, to a peek inside Gator football. I'm Allie Peak, and today we are diving into how the Florida Gators have an advantage to making the 2025 college football playoffs. That's right, a ticket to the 12-team playoff. We are breaking down the most realistic path, why quality losses could actually boost UF's resume, and how certain programs flopping last year giving big brands like Florida an edge. Plus, we've got some fire quotes from Coach Billy Napier and the players at SEC Media Days, all centered around that spot the ball mentality. Line up, play fast, and compete with anybody. So let's get into it. Okay, so the expanded 12-team college football playoff has changed the game. You do not need to go undefeated or even win the SEC to get in. Last year, teams like Indiana and SMU made the cut with strong records, but their quick exits showed the committee that it might be good to favor bigger brands like Florida in 2025. A 9-3 record can absolutely get the Gators in, especially with their brutal schedule. So let's map out the most realistic path. First, let's look at UF's 2025 slate. It's a gauntlet, one of the toughest in the country. Check this out. At LSU, at Miami, Texas, at Texas A&M, Georgia, at Kentucky, Tennessee, at Ole Miss, and Florida State, plus early games against LIU, USF, Mississippi State. ESPN's Football Power Index projects Florida as the number 15 team with a chance to finish 8-4 or better. But we're aiming for 9-3. Here's how we get there. To hit 9-3, Florida needs to start strong and steal a couple of big games. The season kicks off August 30th against Long Island University. That's a win. Then September 6th, they face USF at home. The Gators get another W there. Week 3 at LSU and week 4 at Miami are massive tests, but hold that thought. We will come back to that. After that, Florida gets Texas at home, at Texas A&M, Mississippi State, Georgia and Jacksonville, at Kentucky, Tennessee, at Ole Miss, and Florida State. Realistically, Florida's likely wins are LIU, USF, Mississippi State, Kentucky, and Florida State. So that's 5. Mississippi State went winless in the SEC last year, and Kentucky is coming off a bowlless season. Now for the 50-50 games. At LSU, at Miami, Tennessee, and at Ole Miss. If Florida can win 5 of their 9 SEC games and then split those toss-ups, they're looking at 9-3. Let's say they beat LSU, Miami, Tennessee, and Ole Miss, but lose to Texas, Texas A&M, and Georgia. That's a 9-3 resume with serious playoff potential. At SEC Media Days on July 16th, Coach Napier set the tone, saying, quote, "You spot the ball last year, at the end of the year, you could argue we were playing as good a football as anybody in the country." That is that spot the ball mentality. Line up, play fast, and take on all comers. Napier believes this team can compete with anybody, and a 9-3 record with this schedule would prove it. Now, let's talk about why 9-3 gets Florida in. Quality losses. I know that those of us from the BCS era cringe at the concept of quality losses, but think about this. Last year, Alabama and Miami just missed the playoffs at 9-3, but their resumes were hurt by what's considered a bad loss, right? Alabama lost to Vanderbilt. It was a 6-6 team, and they lost to Oklahoma, who finished 5-7. Miami got beat by Georgia Tech and Syracuse, who are not powerhouses by any means. Those losses tanked their resume because they weren't competitive against teams that they should have been competitive against. Now compare that to Florida's potential losses. If the Gators lose to Texas, Texas A&M, and Georgia, all projected top 10 teams by ESPN's FPI, those are quality losses. The committee loves strength of schedule, and Florida's is a beast. ESPN noted that Florida's stretch from September 13th to November 1st at LSU, at Miami, Texas, at Texas A&M, Mississippi State, and Georgia and Jacksonville might be the toughest stretch in the nation. Going 3-3 in that gauntlet keeps you in the playoff conversation, especially if your losses are close games against elite teams. Senior defensive tackle Caleb Banks said it best at Media Days. "I'm looking for every single game, honestly. I'm ready to play ball. That is the attitude that Florida needs to keep games tight, even in defeat. Last year, Florida's losses to top 25 teams like Georgia and Texas were competitive. And that is the kind of resume that impresses the committee. Obviously, more competitive against Georgia than Texas, but we were dealing with some injuries there. And so, even hanging around just a little bit is impressive when you were down to your third string quarterback. Let's look a little bit more at 2024 for proof. Indiana and SMU made the playoffs as at large teams. Indiana went 11 and 1 with their only loss coming to Ohio State. And SMU was 11 and 2 with a quality loss to BYU and then a loss to Clemson in the ACC championship game. Both got in, but both flopped hard. Indiana got crushed and SMU lost too in the first round. The committee took a chance on smaller brands and they didn't deliver. That is where Florida's pedigree and brand power come in. Indiana and SMU show that a great record can get you to the playoffs. But then the committee also saw that smaller programs struggle to compete with the big dogs. We talk about this year in and year out. And I understand why it's exciting for those programs. And I understand the concept of you just got to play the schedule you're given. But listen, Florida, as an SEC blue blood, should get the benefit of the doubt. Last year, Georgia and Tennessee, both 10 and 2, were ranked ahead of 10 and 1 SMU and Indiana in the college football playoffs because of their brand and their strength of schedule. Before I go on, I do want to stop and give some love to Alumni Hall. We are just over a month from kickoff, and they are starting to get some of the elite gear that you guys are going to all be sporting in the swamp this fall. Brands like Nike, Jordan, Columbia, Peter Millar, Cutter and Buck, and more. So make sure you are shopping at Alumni Hall on Archer Road if you're in Gainesville, or don't worry, if you're not, you can shop online at alumnihall.com. It is a great way to support this channel, but even better, support a small business and the best place that you can get your Gator gear from. A 9 in Florida team with losses to top 10 teams and wins over LSU, Miami, and Tennessee. That's a resume the committee is going to respect, especially after the SEC sent 3 teams to the playoffs last year. Sophomore quarterback DJ Lagway, who is a Heisman hopeful, said at Media Days, "I definitely think we're a playoff team. We just got to go out there and play ball and prove it to ourselves." His mindset and comments show that he is ready to lead this team to big wins, and his confidence is infectious. Here's the key to Florida's playoff hopes. Start 4-0 in September. If the Gators can beat LIU, USF, LSU, and Miami, they are in the driver's seat. LSU and Miami on the road are no joke, but Florida's already shown they can handle big games. Last year, they beat LSU 27-16 in the Swamp, and with Garrett Nussmeier's lack of mobility, Florida's defensive line, led by Caleb Banks, could feast again. Miami is a tough challenge with Georgia transfer quarterback Carson Beck. But the Gators secondary with guys like Jordan Castell and Bryce Thornton are built to contain big offenses. And Florida has seen Carson Beck a time or two, and they know what to look for. If Florida goes 4-0 in September, they will likely be 2-0 in top 15 matchups and already have 2 marquee wins over Miami and LSU, who are both an ACC contender. That sets up a top 10 matchup against Texas in week 5. I really think even a loss there keeps them in the playoff hunt because a 4-1 start with wins at LSU and Miami is still a statement. The committee will see a team that is battle tested and ready to, as Napier would say, spot the ball against anyone. Now let's talk brand advantage. Florida is one of the SEC's biggest names, and the committee knows the Swamp is just a different beast. Last year, South Carolina was a 3-loss team that nearly made the playoffs because of their schedule strength and wins over Texas A&M and Missouri. Florida's resume at 9-3 with wins over LSU, Miami, Tennessee, or Ole Miss mirrors that. Plus, the Gators' late season surge in 2024, 4 straight wins, including upsets over LSU and Ole Miss, 2 teams that the Gators kept out of the playoffs, if we're being honest, really show that they can hang with anybody. The committee also looks at intangibles. Florida has a top-ranked recruiting class. They've got veteran leadership from guys like Jake Slaughter, and they've got a Heisman candidate quarterback in DJ Lagway, and that gives them that, let's call it SEC shine. Unlike Indiana or SMU, Florida's got the depth and the pedigree to compete in a 3 or 4 game playoff run. And with only 5 transfers, that roster chemistry is rock solid. So here is my prediction. If Florida goes 4-0 in September, beating LIU, USF, LSU, and Miami, they have an incredible shot at making the playoffs. A 9-3 finish with wins over those 4, plus Mississippi State, Kentucky, Tennessee, Ole Miss, and Florida State, with losses to Texas, Texas A&M, and Georgia. Well, that's a top 12 resume. The committee is going to see quality losses, marquee wins, and an SEC brand that demands respect. ESPN's FPI gives Florida a chance to crack the top 15, and CBS Sports has already named them a prime candidate for their first ever college football playoff berth. But it all comes down to execution. As Coach Napier says, if we're loyal to each other and we do the absolute best we can for each other, we've got a chance to have a really, really good football team that can put the ball down and play with any team in the country. That is that spot the ball mentality. Line up, play fast, and let the chips fall. With DJ Lagway swinging it, a veteran offensive line, and a defense that racked up 39 sacks last year, this is a team that's ready to make some noise. Gator Nation, a 9-3 season with quality losses and big wins puts Florida in the 2020 college football playoff. Start 4-0 in September, and the path is clear. Pack the swamp, cheer on DJ Lagway and the boys, show the committee why the Gators belong. Make sure you hit the subscribe button to A Peek Inside Gator Football. Also, drop me a comment. What do you think? Does a 9-3 Gator team get into the playoffs this year? And what's the one game we absolutely have to win? Comment down below. As always, go Gators.